So today I'm going to be doing a French bread tutorial. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm using the New York Times recipe, and we usually double the recipe so it makes 2 loaves instead of 1, or if you're making like a mini loaf, then I'll make 4. So let's get started. First thing we're gonna do is get the yeast ready. I think it's the Kroger brand Best Choice. Let's see, says 125 to 130 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're gonna start with 2 cups of lukewarm water. Okay, so we finally got the water heated up to a good temperature. So we're gonna go ahead and add the salt to the water. 3 teaspoons. Okay. So we're doing 2 packets of yeast because it calls for 1 in the original recipe, and we're doubling it, as I've said. Simple math. So we've got that. We're just going to stir this until it's well dissolved according to the recipe, and it's not really going to be well dissolved, but just stir it in a little bit. So right now we're activating the yeast. And that looks okay. So we're gonna set this aside. Should look something like this. Not super appetizing, but you know, it happens. Add the shortening. So shortening, you just have to have some type of oil. You can use canola oil, right? Canola oil or Crisco, which is what I use a lot of the times. And it calls for 1 tablespoon of soft shortening, so we're gonna do 2. So the yeast is looking good. It's bubbling already. That's a good sign. I'm vlogging my bread making.
Who's gonna watch it?
I don't know. Make sure this is nice and even. Okay, so that looks looking pretty good. We're gonna add 1 tablespoon in here, and then we'll do the second. So these are pretty much the only ingredients to this besides flour. So yeah, it's not super complicated at all. It's just practice. Okay, so now that we have all of those added, we are going to go ahead, and I have my stand mixer right here. And we're going to, this is a bread hook. It's really good for making dough and you don't have to knead it, so that's nice. Now, I'm gonna get started. I have my flour right here. This is bread flour. We're not gonna sift it because it just makes for a better texture. We're gonna go ahead and pour in all of this into the bowl. Don't make a mess, I just made a mess. Okay, so now we're gonna add half a cup of flour at a time until it forms a stiff ball of dough around the hook. I will flip the camera, start showing you how this is gonna look. Okay, so here we go. Half a cup at a time. I think this is like 2.5 or 3 cups now. Looking like this, looking better. Closer to a dough. Okay, so we're definitely almost there because it has started to clean off the sides a little bit, but it is still just a little bit sticky. So I'm gonna add just a tiny bit more flour. And I honestly have no idea how much flour this is at this point. It's probably close to 4 cups or so, maybe more than that. The original recipe calls for, I think, 3 1/2 cups of flour, but it's really more than I got. things. As you can see, the dough has formed a ball around the hook, and the sides have been cleaned off down at the bottom. It's looking good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn up the speed. Ooh, not that fast. And we're going to set a timer for 2 minutes to take the place of kneading it. Okay, so our dough has kneaded for 2 minutes, and now we're going to put it in this bowl, but we have to grease the bowl first. So I'm just going to spray it with some ham and then put it in there to rest. So we're going to get it off there. Scoop it up out of the bowl. It should be kind of pillowy. It's still a little sticky, but that's okay, because we're gonna add some more flour later when we're shaping it and everything. So we're just gonna try and fold it back to where it's pretty smooth on the top and in a little ball. Then before you put it in the bowl, this is a greased bowl, you're gonna get some of the grease on the top and then plop it down in there. Now we're going to cover this with a towel that is slightly damp and let it rest until it's doubled in size, about an hour to an hour and a half. Okay, so here's the slightly damp cloth. We're just going to cover it like so and let it hang out. The dough has been rising for about an hour or so. And how you check and see if it's ready, see how much bigger it's gotten. How you're going to check and see if it's ready is take 2 fingers and push down. And if the indentation stays like this did, then that means that it's ready to be punched down. And it should look like that. Then we're gonna do the same thing we did at the beginning. Take it out, just kind of smoothen out like we did before, and put it in upside down. So we have a new top of the dough. We're gonna cover it again. Let it rise for another about 45 minutes or until it doubles in size again. Our dough has been rising for about another 45 minutes or so. We're gonna go ahead and check on it. It's really big. I already did the 2-finger thing, tested it out. Looking good. So our bread pans look like this. I have 2 of them, so 1 for each loaf. We're making 4 little loaves today. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spray some Pam in the pan. Take some cornmeal. This has been in the freezer. It's just plain yellow cornmeal. And this is to make a kind of a crust on the bottom of the loaves. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the pans and just sprinkle some of this along the bottom. Prepped pans look like, not super specific, just grease and cornmeal. I'm gonna go ahead and separate the dough into 4 different sections. I'm just gonna try and separate it as evenly as possible into 4. So start by doing obviously 2 and 2. And then from there we'll go to 2 more. So they shouldn't be, they're not gonna be super big, but you know, it looks about even. Okay, so now we have 4 little dough babies. I'm gonna flour the pan, or not the pan, the cutting board, the workspace. Not heavily flour, just enough to where it's not super sticky, you know? And then I am gonna go ahead and flour the rolling pin as well. So we're gonna take the first one of our little babies, plop it down. You know, we don't wanna work it too much, but we do wanna get it into a nice oblong shape. So this part, you just have to be a little patient and get it just oblong enough to where you can roll it into a good sized loaf. This angle is terrible. Just really stretch it out good. The dough is like super soft, so it should be, if it's not super soft, it's probably too much flour in there, I would say. I mean, obviously it's not like extremely soft, not like weirdly soft, but you know, it's dough. We're gonna roll it up. We're gonna start at the edge, kind of stretch it out as we're going, just to make it a little bit longer. Fold it over. You really wanna make sure that you get it nice and tightly rolled, because otherwise there will be a hole in the middle of your bread, which has happened to me before. it's not that big of a deal. It still tastes great. It just looks a little weird on the inside. So we've rolled that up and kind of, you know, stretch it out as you go. Make sure that that crease is on the bottom, and then on the ends, to make them pretty, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take it out and around like this, fold it over, and kind of pinch it underneath so that the end is nice and, you know, nicely shaped. So there we go. Now we're gonna take it and put it in one of the pans. So then the ends, you fold over like that and tuck under. And that's just a little bit of a better view. So let me show you this one. Kind of pinch it under there so it stays. Same thing over here. Take that end piece, kind of stretch it out and fold it under and pinch it together. And then you put it in the pan. Okay, so here are our loaves all laid out in the pans. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna take a knife, pretty sharp knife, serrated works better. We're gonna cut into them diagonal, or you can do straight down the middle, but I think diagonal slices looks better. Doesn't have to be super specific. There's really no exact technique to this. And we're just gonna do like that to all the loaves. Okay, so we have put the cuts into all of those loaves. We're gonna brush them with some water. This part is fun and easy. And I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then we're gonna let them rest and rise one more time before they go in the oven for about 45 minutes to an hour again, until they're just bigger. So, yeah. They are, after they have been rising for another hour, we're just gonna brush them with water one more time. To put them in the oven for 10 minutes at 425. I like to use convection bake. Okay, so it has been 10 minutes, so I'm going to here's what they look like right now. I'm gonna go ahead and pull them out and put some more water on them. And at this point, I usually like to switch the location of the pans just so they get nice and evenly cooked. Okay, so I've brushed them with water. We're gonna push them back in there, close the oven. Now we're gonna reduce the heat to 375. And we're gonna set them for 10 more minutes. Okay, so they have been baking for another 10 minutes in there. They look nice and crispy and brown. Yay! Okay, so here they are after coming out of the oven. Now at this point in the process, if you want to go ahead and bake them off, you can put them back in the oven at 375 after brushing them with water again for 15-20 more minutes until they're nice and golden brown and done on the inside. Or if you're going to want to bake them at a later date, freshly, like for dinner, you know, as a side, whatever, then we're going to let them cool off and wrap them in foil and put them in the freezer. And then when you're ready to have fresh baked bread, you can just pop it out of the aluminum foil, pop it in the oven at 350 convection bake until it's not frozen on the inside, until it's nice and warm all the way through. So, yeah, we're done.